Hi, everyone. We are now live. Thanks for coming. Thanks for taking your time out of your busy schedule to attend this webinar. As a profession, we were very fortunate to be one of the first allowed to work. This did not happen by accident. Collectively, individual members, the LO COVID Task Force, the LO Communications Committee, and our staff, we convinced the Premier that our industry can work safely while protecting the health of our employees, customers, and the general public. With this privilege comes responsibility. There has been massive media attention, as well as a great deal of public scrutiny. This is a good thing. This has given us a huge opportunity to show the public how professional, caring, considerate, and trustworthy the landscape horticulture profession is. It's our time to shine. This is where we need your help as suppliers. Collectively, you reach every person in the industry. Your influence is huge. We need you to act as coaches, as mentors, as teachers to your clients. You have a huge role to play in helping your customers work as safely as possible. With your influence and support, we will be able to raise the bar of professionalism and public trust. We've put together an excellent panel of fellow suppliers that are willing to share their ideas and experiences. Each panelist will speak about safety protocols in their own business, as well as what they are doing to educate and support their customers. After the presentations, we will open the webinar chat for questions, comments, and ideas. We're here to collaborate, to grow, to nurture, and support our wonderful profession. The panelists include Jeff Olsen from BTN Nurseries, Jamie Riddell from Site 1 Landscape Supply, Rob Allison from Kubota, Rob Vanderkruk from Connon Nurseries, and John Durzi from Miller Compost. So let's start with Jeff Olsen. Tell us a little bit about BTN and your protocols and strategies for keeping your operations safe and helping your clients to do the same. Jeff, it's all yours.
Oh, thank you very much. Welcome everybody on this finally a spring day. Well, yesterday I guess was kind of the first one, but boy, it's nice to see spring here finally, and it's nice to be out working. I'm sure for all of you out there. Happy to be talking about our protocols. It's been a crazy ride, as it has for everybody here at our company. Just to give a bit of history, so we're a grower. We have 6 locations from the West Coast in British Columbia, and then a bunch of them here in Ontario. And starting around mid-March, when this all started to happen, we took a very aggressive approach to begin with, and we thought it was going to be a blip. A short-lived bunch of protocols we would put in place, mostly around hygiene, washing your hands, distancing, those types of things. So we started there, and then of course everything kind of fell off a cliff. A week after that, just after March break. And from a business side, what we did was we began by I guess laying off about 60% of our staff, and partially that was appreciated from their side in one sense, because it was just a really freaked out workplace, and everybody was really nervous about getting sick. So although we had all the hygiene protocols in place, and we also had a disaster plan, call it, if God forbid somebody did get sick in the workplace, we had a protocol around how they would be treated, how we would clean the area that they were in, and all of those types. How would we get as far down as how we would get them to the doctor, how we would get them to the hospital, what we would do with coworkers. So we had a complete protocol around that, and still have that same protocol today, although it's been modified as we get more information from the World Health Organization and from the Canadian side of things. We've adjusted and tried to adapt to best practices. So I'll start by saying that the most important thing that we did several years ago was that we hired a third-party safety consultant as a full-time position here. That's all this person who works for us does, is health and safety. And that was a godsend when this came around, because we had somebody already dedicated. Of course, we have a health and safety committee and all that. And I think I said on the webinar a few days ago that health and safety gives me a real headache. So it's great to have, and as an entrepreneur, and most entrepreneurs, it's more of a need to do than a passion. So to have somebody on staff who's passionate about it was huge. So we had already had that person in place. They put all our protocols in place, and then they managed it. And that person could be doing the police work out in the field, making sure that everybody's adapting and adhering to our policies. So that was a huge part of it, was having an independent safety person, independent third party who could, let's say, be the bad guy and take care of all of the protocols as well as policing them. And policing them is huge in our facilities. So we have 4 main areas of, let's call it, focus or risk in the business, and some are less risky than others. So internally, we have greenhouse and growing operations. I'll call those the lowest level of protocol, where of course hygiene is always and distancing are always I won't say encouraged, but they are enforced. But it's still a very low risk level. It's outdoor, it's in the fresh air. You can space out pretty easily, and so that's a pretty low level of requirement. Secondly is our office. Now, I think I was saying to the guys before we got on the call here that we have 20 people in our office normally, and we're down to 2. And so, and yet everybody's still employed. So we have about 18 out of our 20 people working from home, which is working out really, really well. But for those of us who are left, the 2 of us that are here, we have, it's a very low risk level, and we have, again, the same hygiene protocols. We've increased our office cleaning to 3 days a week instead of once a week, and then we just between us, we clean up basically Lysol wipes, those kitchen areas, all the common areas we clean up every day. So then onto a mid-level area is our warehouse, and the warehouses are very, as you're hearing in the news, warehouses and like processing plants are the hardest, most difficult thing in those facilities is to keep people apart from each other. We're on assembly lines, and that is really difficult. So in those areas, we are enforcing mask wearing in those areas, and of course as much physical distancing as we can do, and of course all the hygiene protocols are in there too. So that's more of a mid-level risk. I say mid to high. Finally, we have our where we touch our and the difference in the warehouse is that it's the same staff every single day. There's no real strangers coming in there. Then you get to our highest risk area, which would be where we're touching customers, where we're seeing truck drivers come in and out, those types of things, and that's our highest risk level to employees and customers. And so what we did with our landscape pickup center was we turned that into a strictly drive-through. And so we built the driveways extra wide, spaced the plants out. So basically, contractors and the general public can drive through there without ever seeing anybody, pick up their product, put it in their trunk, and then when they check out, we have a process where none of our staff ever touches their stuff. And so basically, it's like a Tim Hortons drive-through window that they come to. Finally, there's also store deliveries and job site deliveries. That's also an area of high risk where we have specific protocols around masks and around gloves, and of course always the hygiene and distancing. So those are the 4 or 5 areas of the business that we have, and how we're protecting our employees and our customers.
So Jeff, maybe I can just ask a question.
Sure.
Right off the bat. So what we really want to do here is encourage suppliers to coach their customers.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So do you see that your customers are actually working safely? Are they coming in, 5 to a truck? Like
No, we're really not seeing any of that. I haven't, in our place, we have not seen any of that. We're seeing, 1 to 2 people per vehicle coming in. And I think that from what we're seeing, again, I think people are taking this seriously and really making an attempt, even though it's not our human nature, they're really making an attempt to follow protocols.
It's good. Excellent. Yeah, because we're fearful that because of all the public scrutiny, that this privilege to work will be taken away.
Of course, yeah, we're very nervous about that as well. But what we're seeing in the beginning days here of being back to work, it's been what, a week and a half. It seems, at least the folks who are coming into our place, and maybe it's the way we're set up, it's actually being adhered to very nicely.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Jamie, you're on next.
Yeah. Hi, Jamie Riddell from Site One Landscape Supply. We operate 7 locations in Eastern Canada, 6 in Ontario. Part of a bigger company. We have about 600 locations across Canada and the US. So I say that to say this. I had a lot of general support from our field support center in Roswell, Georgia, in dealing with general hygiene and safety protocols. So a lot of things were being delivered to us with very little effort on our behalf from a general standpoint. And then, locally, we were really focused on what the bylaws were or what the practices were going to be in the province of Ontario and the province of Quebec. They were also different. So we had a lot of help. Like Jeff was saying, he had hired someone to come in and help him. We had some of that helicopter support from field support, but then when it got down to the local stuff, it was really all of us understanding and delivering on the local expectations. First, I want to apologize for having to wear the hat. I used to be able to cut my hair by myself very easily, and I tried to give myself a COVID cut the other night, and it didn't go well. So I will continue to wear this hat for 2 weeks, because the difference between a good haircut and a bad haircut is always 2 weeks. So I apologize. But what I wanted to talk about from a health and safety practice, I really wanted to kind of talk about some of these best practices we've experienced over the last week and a half since we've really gotten back to work, and some of the things that we've learned. Like something that's so simple as, think about your debit machines when your customers are touching them. They're not the easiest things to spray and clean, right? Well, one guy down in Maryland went into a grocery store and they had put Glad Press and Seal wrap around every debit machine. So when you went to wipe down the debit machine, there was no cracks and crevices, so it was really easy to get it clean, right? So we went out and we bought Glad Press and Seal for all of our debit machines. And again, we're a curbside and delivery only company, but people, when they pay debit and they come to the window and they need to use the machine, or we need to pass it between associates, very easy to clean. So from a health and safety standpoint, that was a great little trick. It cost us less than 12 cents a unit. And you can change it every day and whatnot. Another thing that we're doing that, again, technology is wonderful. We actually taped squares on the windows of our buildings. So when we say to people, if you wanted to pay tap, we say, come to the green square. We'll meet you there with the machine, and we put the machine up, and they can tap their card on the window without having to touch us, right? Funny story there is, a lot of people just start tapping when we're not there with the machine yet, like it's a magic window. But it's some entertainment for us, for all those people watching. So that's a really good social distancing practice. And then being a bigger company, we actually did have some people test positive for COVID that were at work and or had been exposed through exterior sources to COVID-19. And we had to react very quickly. I was the first leader in our company to have someone test positive, and it was in New York State. And we reacted really quickly and had that person quarantined, deep cleaned the branch, and notified all the employees. And we consulted with local health the county health public health office. And they gave us in writing always, what should the employee do? What should we do? And, we followed that very closely. However, as time evolved and we had more people that were had the interactions with people with COVID-19, our strategy got really clean. So, identified a potential or a positive test, closed the store. We had a deep clean company, our health and safety department had them in there. We closed the store. We had non-affected people standing out front of the store, directing traffic to other stores, making sure even if it was our store or a competitor store, it didn't matter as long as the customers could get served. So our protocol on the what if, we call it, what if somebody tests positive protocol, really got enhanced as we went along, and it became more about customer service and the employees than it became about doing business, right? That's something to keep an eye out for, and like Jeff said, it's a really good thing to have a well-documented plan about, because again, it's phone calls to health agencies and things like that people don't know the numbers to. Like your regular safety, what a WSIB phone number is, who your benefits company is to call when things happen and whatnot. But there's different numbers to call when it comes to this type of incident. And then one other thing that we practice a lot that really helped in this situation was we already had a fairly succinct safety team across our company. So each store had a safety champion. So it was really easy to know who to delegate the monitoring and the implementation of new ideas across, was because those safety captains could just pick it up as part of their safety captain role and continue to download any direction that came from myself from a local perspective or from our field sports center from a corporate perspective. So from a health and safety practices standpoint, like not that different than Jeff. We have outdoor yards, we have warehouses in the city, in urban environments. We have, in London, we have 2 locations that, customers are walking through stone yards, picking out stone, wanting us to weigh it. Some really interesting interaction standpoints that we had to really change our policy and procedures about using more equipment, not as much, hand on a cart. We'd have them build a skid, use the machine to put the skid on the scale, that kind of stuff, right? So thinking about how to use mechanical touches versus physical human touch to make some of these processes roll along. And then when it comes to influencing our customers, I think the single biggest challenge for all of us is grasping the concept that our sphere of influence on our customers has drastically changed overnight, right? We are a hand on the back, handshake industry, right? We are used to being face to face. We are used to talking. We're used to being able to use emotion and facial expression and use body language to interact with our customers, because most of us, the majority of our role is going to be sales or customer service, right? And it's a very emotional thing. Well, now that we're curbside and delivery, those touch points are really different. And talking about how to influence your customers to understand what safety is living by a great example, right? Is leading by example. And then we focused a lot of our communication throughout the uncertain times, and then even when we got back to work, we focused a lot of our communication around what does business look like, and then what are the solutions that you are going to need, whether we sell them or don't sell them. It was, where do you find sanitizer? Where do you find hand sanitizer, right? So telling people that these are the things that are more important. These are the parts of your business that are going to change, right? Where you're buying stuff doesn't have to change. How you guys, what trucks you guys drive doesn't have to change. Maybe you have less people in a truck, but the one thing that was changing was going to be your safety practices. So what we have focused on communication with our customers is what tools they need, and then to understand that when you get back to work, the one thing you're going to have to keep an eye on and be ready to roll with punches and make changes is going to be your health and safety policy. I guarantee you are going to learn something new every 2 days, 3 days. You're going to have to implement it. You're going to have to roll with it, right? So you need to have a concise communication plan to all of your crew members, and you need to have thought of that before going back to work. So that's what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to talk about strategies and the what ifs, and then just give an idea of what products are available. We have tons of masks, sanitizer, and all that stuff available for contractors, and a lot of people are buying them. And I would agree with Jeff. I don't see a lot of people, multiple people in trucks. It's one or two people in split, in 4-door trucks. There might be two people, but I am astonished by how many people are coming here, one person to a vehicle. And another thing to remind customers about is if only one person's coming to the supplier and everybody else is back on the job site, they're likely more productive back on the job site than all four of them in a truck going to the supplier, right? So that's a win for a business owner. And that's another thing that you can encourage, because the most expensive labor we have is unsupervised labor. And we can really mitigate that in today's day and age. Like this is forcing us to manage that better. So as far as influencing customers, the challenge is our circle of influence has really changed. You got to think about how you're going to communicate today over how you communicated in the past.
And so when you're thinking about that, Jamie, so what are you doing to communicate? So
we can't really bring people into the store anymore and talk to them while we're putting their order on the cart and then wheeling it out to their truck. So we basically have to put the order outside and then close the door and let them. So what we're doing is we're talking to them on the phone, and we're not just saying, okay, here's your order, and letting them go, right? So I always say as a supplier, your best interview is when you're loading someone's truck. You can see what else is in there. You can see, you get a better idea of what they use and things like that. Well, you're losing that opportunity of interaction. But if you keep them on the phone, you're on an earpiece or they're on an earpiece, you can continue that conversation. You don't have to hang up just because you've fulfilled the order. So it seems like it might be uncomfortable at times, but it's necessary. You need to keep that line of communication open. And then the other thing we're not doing a lot of email communication right now. It's a lot of picking up the phone and calling people, because either they want to cry, they're so happy they're back to work and making money, or they want to cry, they're so busy that they don't know if they're ever going to see their families again. But they know they want to talk to somebody, and they love talking to us. So more phone calls, less emails, and do the back of the truck interview, as I call it. Just keep doing them, but just do it over the phone.
Great. Thanks, Jamie. So now we'll go over to Rob Allison from Kubota.
Oh, thanks, Tony, and hi, everyone. My name is Rob Allison. I'm the brand director for Kubota Canada, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. I hope what I share is informative, because certainly Kubota is in a much different position as a company than most of you. We are the exclusive distributor in Canada for Kubota and Coverland and Great Plains and Lampard products. And so as a result, we don't necessarily directly connect with customers. We have two levels of customers, our dealers and our end users. But obviously the dealers are the ones that connect with the public. And so as a result, what I'm going to talk about is a little bit more focused on our internal procedures and some of the things that we've done to react to COVID-19 in the hopes that we are able to continue to operate as an essential service without any positive COVID testing, which up until today, we've had no positive tests. So to give you a bit of a corporate overview, we are based in Markham, Ontario. We have a campus there of one head office and 3 warehouses that form primary inbound and outbound shipping of all of our parts and whole goods. We have a secondary location in Drummondville, Quebec for Eastern distribution purposes. All told, we employ about 234 people in the country. 210 of those are in our Markham facility. We have 4 people running the warehouse in Drummondville, and then we have about 27 or 28 people in the field. Regional sales managers, product service experts, field support people for our dealers. So that kind of gives you a bit of an idea in terms of how our company is structured and where our people are and where our facilities are. As I was mentioning, because we are selling agricultural products, we were deemed an essential service. So through this whole thing, Kubota has been fully operational, as have our dealers, even though we've all made major changes in terms of how we do business. We have been functioning pretty much at full capacity with no major interruptions in supply chain. And I'll talk about that a little bit. But talking about how we've dealt with our own employees and our own work environments, obviously one of the first things that we did was encourage everybody that could work from home to work from home. And we were talking a little bit about that before we came online, that you know, the world is changing in terms of companies having to have people physically in an office building in order to perform their work duties. That's going to be a dramatic change in how our company works, because we're all realizing that you can function remotely just as well as you can in person in an office for the most part. Obviously, if anybody was showing or feeling sick in any way, we asked them to stay home, regardless of the circumstances. And then additionally, we put a travel ban on all of our managers and field staff. So no travel by air, train, or public transit. You could only travel from point A to point B through your own personal vehicle. All of our meetings that we would normally schedule, like I'm sure every other company has, went virtual. So platforms like the one we're using today, Zoom, WebEx, they're our primary means of communicating and sharing information internally and with our dealers. Our executive, since this whole thing broke, would have a daily meeting every morning at 8:30 to talk about COVID response, talk about COVID action plan, and develop the communication that we would put out to our employee group, which we would do on a weekly basis. So every week, our staff has been given an update by the executive in terms of any changes, any new protocols that have been put into place to minimize any risk of spreading the disease. In addition to that, we created on our Google Docs platform a master HR file. So every manager across the country could input the status of their staff members, whether or not they were working, whether they were off for any particular reason, whether it was bereavement, sickness, whether they were working from home, working from an office, just so we had an idea of where and how people were using their day. This was not to be a policing thing, it was to be an awareness thing, so that we knew who was having any issues either performing their duties or whether or not they were being affected by COVID. Obviously, we've restricted entrance into our facilities by any visitors. The only outside staff that are allowed to come in are cleaning and maintenance people, and that's done on a very scheduled basis. And further to that, we have a daily sanitization policy in our warehouses and our office space. Any of those touch points or regular touch points like door handles, cleanings are cleaned regularly twice a day with disinfectant. We've also made personal protection equipment available to all of our staff. We haven't mandated masks. However, a lot of our staff are voluntarily, particularly in the warehouses, wearing face coverings to try and prevent any spread potentially. Most of those masks are non-N95. They're a asymptomatic mask that, as you all know, probably are really just to prevent any unforeseen spread of the virus. One of the other things that we instituted too was isolating travel between our warehouses. So as I was mentioning, we have 4 separate warehouses plus an office space. So in a typical day, we probably have, 50 or 60 people generally moving back and forth between each one of those warehouses, and we've restricted that to minimize any risk of contamination. There's been many different ideas brought up and many different ways that we thought we could mitigate, any of the risks around COVID. But one of the things that we realized that we had to do was figure out a way to reduce density in our warehouses particularly, but maintain a smooth continuum of operations, because we were fully operational, right? There was no restriction from us on a business standpoint to slow down or stop doing what we do. So in order to do that, we had to go to split shifts in our warehouse. So we divided up our warehouse staff into morning and afternoon shifts to reduce the density, but maintain our shipping continuity. And that's worked out very well. But inside the warehouse, there's no sharing of material handling equipment. Each one of our forklifts and all of our pallet trucks, all that sort of stuff is wiped down every night between shifts. And we do whatever we can to minimize any chance of spread from that standpoint. We do have thermometers on site. If people feel sick, they can test themselves or have themselves tested. But as it stands right now, as I mentioned, we've had no instances of COVID in our warehouses anywhere. We've also posted signage, you know, and I think, unfortunately, you have to keep reminding people, although sometimes, you know, as Jeff and Jamie have mentioned, you know, people are really respecting the restrictions that are in place by the province. But sometimes you really, I see it, unfortunately, that people do forget to socially distance. And I think Jamie mentioned in a warehouse, or maybe it was Jeff, that it's really hard in a warehouse environment to social distance. So what we've tried to do is develop zones where we try and keep our warehouse staff working within their zone so that there's no particular or no chance of moving outside of a zone to potentially infect others. So it hasn't been easy, and those guys out there are doing a great job of maintaining distancing wherever they can, but it was the best thing that we could come up with to try and minimize any chance of contamination in our warehouses. And one last thing I just wanted to talk a little bit about is supply chain too. So as I mentioned, we're an essential service provider, and so our supply chain has had to continue on, even though we've had some hiccups with other providers, i.e. couriers or freight companies. So right at the beginning, we set up some protocols and contingencies to deal with what if scenarios. What if Purelator all of a sudden can't handle the volume in Calgary and we need to get stuff shipped? So we have protocols within the courier and the freight handling side of our business to be able to switch from one to the next in the event that we have hiccups. And you know, I mean, we have manufacturing facilities all around the world. So Japan, Europe, United States, and Canada for that matter. And all of those factories we stay in close contact with to ensure that if they're running into issues, we can figure out a plan to work around. So for all intents and purposes, we haven't really had to tell our dealers, sorry, we can't ship this because we can't get it from a supplier. So it's been pretty seamless from that standpoint, and we're very fortunate to have been in the position we are. And you know, lastly, just to talk about maybe coaching our dealers, I'd have to tell you that our dealers have been coaching us in some regards. You know, they're very, very resourceful business people, and they were some of the first ones to institute social distancing within their dealerships, curbside pickup, and you know, everybody's learning how to communicate and connect electronically now. So dealers have really ramped up their ability to do these sorts of communications and just do business online. Not very often we sell too many tractors online, but we're doing a lot of it right now. So it's quite interesting from that standpoint. So I'll leave you with that. Be happy to entertain any questions later on.
Rob, thank you. Now we'll go over to Rob Vanderkruk.
Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, so I'm with Connon Nurseries, and Connon's, our division of Connon's grows about 300 acres of nursery stock. And we have 3 primary selling facilities that we're selling from. We sell on a re-wholesale level, on a wholesale level, and on a retail level. Our wholesale level is mostly to landscape contractors. And so our business model is based on, I would have to say, being able to service customers on site, and very much a stock the shelves and have our contractors come to, and retail come right to the product, select their product, and be able to process it through. At an early stage, we realized that COVID-19 had the potential to completely shut us down for a long period of time because of the continuous interaction. To give you an idea, it's not unusual at this time of the year for us to process approximately 1,500 transactions on site between the 3 yards, or for a total of approximately 90,000 transactions through the year. And so we have a continuous stream of people through our facilities. And so when we look back into about the middle of March at what our approach might be, along with our leadership team here, we said, we really need to figure out A1 industry-leading safety protocol. And so we took 10 days. We shut our organization down at that point, which, of course, in March, it's not too busy. We took about 10 days to really study what approach we might take from a traffic management standpoint, signage, all of our touch points when it came to media. And we really studied that and said, okay, let's not roll this out until we're confident. We were back up and running again April the 1st. And our focus was first and foremost on building staff confidence. That was really, really high to us. We wanted our staff to know that nothing superseded the safety. And we wanted our staff to know that even sales did not supersede that we were perfectly willing to say that we'll forego a sale if it's not safe. We came out with some of that kind of dialogue right at the get-go. We immediately made sure that we had safety cleaning staff on for each facility that were full-time, as opposed to perhaps, as has been alluded to by a couple of others, that, perhaps maybe once or twice a week cleaning. Now we have continuous cleaners that are nonstop circulation. We wanted to make sure that that the staff could also inject their input on how to make it safer. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the really great ideas that I've heard people say here already. I think a lot of us are doing the same thing. I think our viewpoint right from day one was that there's likely three things that if you can do exceptionally well, that they're at the top of everyone's list when it comes to safety. And I don't know that necessarily is specific to any one industry. I think it's across the board. And so we focused on density. We said any areas that have a potential for congestion, such as our offices. If there are staff that are not necessary in our offices, Jeff's alluded to as well, and as Kubota has alluded to, those staff were immediately sent home to work from their home offices. We immediately, to the degree that we actually had 6-foot bamboo poles in our production, that we said, hey, we just want to show you what 6 feet means, and for some of us, we have a lot of migrant workers. We have people that don't have the communication down, although they certainly know our language a lot better than we know theirs. We wouldn't necessarily adequately translate what we're trying to get to them. So we showed them. And that was effective. We really had to kind of hound that for the first week or two, but that was effective. We immediately implemented single people traveling per vehicle around the yards, unless it was a van, in which case we are allowing up to 4, including the driver. And I believe that sits within the Ontario guidelines. I would say that, again, it was about showing our company that we were sincere about the safety first and foremost. Once we did that, we were also able to translate that onto our customers. In all of our touch points, whether it be on digital media, whether it be in our advertising, whether it be on the phone, we continuously remind our customers that we have safety COVID-19 protocol in place. And if they ask for further description, our touch points are descriptive enough to cover that. Once we built that confidence, I think especially with our staff and especially with some of the first customers that came in, it became part of our culture. And I think that's what we're going for here. We need to see that the culture, it's not just words. We got to walk the walk, you know, and that throughout that we see that. And this, you know, I jokingly said just a couple of days ago, we may never go back to people wanting to stand closer than 6 feet, you know, because it really feels like that now here. And I'm not saying that we don't slip up. You will, you know, and we all have. I shook somebody's hand by accident the other day. It happens, you know, out of habit, right? And maybe we all have. But you know, I think I'm already sensing after 2 months that the culture, there's a real shift here. I mean, people are walking around each other just about everywhere we go. You know, so that was important to us, and I wanted to cover that. And that was really just, you know, burning that culture into your company. What else would be unique? I think maybe when it comes to delivery services into our company, early on, maybe an idea that might be helpful to other suppliers. We had stop signs as drivers came in. We had phone numbers posted that they would phone our dispatch so that our dispatch would meet them at the truck, in which case they would put the paperwork into a bin, not give to the dispatch, not give to our shipper receiver. We have, for example, portable toilets that are at places where perhaps drivers would go where otherwise they would have to come into the building to use the building. Now they can actually use the portable toilet where they are. Wherever you can use an electronic device as opposed to actually having to be face-to-face with someone in communication, we heavily promoted that. We've tried to go as much as possible into a touch-free paper system. You know, packing slips, invoices, et cetera, can be handled at a later date. We are heavily, you know, trying to push our customers to phoning in their orders, to emailing in their orders, et cetera, and then that when they come here, that they use our pickup service. We basically have 4 different methods of being able to distribute our traffic lanes, if you will. One is for a walk-in. For self-selection. The second is for pre-order and pickup. The third is for delivery. And then this 4th avenue of drivers coming in with product to deliver. And, you know, in each component, there are slight variances, but the rule remains the same. And that is about, you know, maintaining the 6 feet and about constant and continuous cleaning. You know, and with those 2 things always in the foreground, we found that our staff have really fallen in line. And amazingly, we, you know, even in our sales yards, we're noticing that our customers are, I think it was mentioned once before, they're really training us too. I mean, you know, people are very well behaved here, and you know, they come in already very well prepared, and in fact, like, we're learning from each other every day.
That's wonderful, Rob. Thank you. Last person to speak, John Durzi. John,
hello, thank you for having me. Hope everyone can hear me. My name is John Durzi. I work for Miller Compost, a branch of Miller Waste Systems. We're pretty fortunate. We were deemed essential right out of the gate only because of our processing of leaf and yard waste and our waste pickup. From the head office standpoint, we had a lot of support in regards to health and safety policies and procedures. They had also hired a full-time doctor. So we were able to be fortunate enough in that situation. In that regard, if people were sent home, they'd be in communication with the doctor until they were let back to work. In Miller Compost, we have 3 locations in Southern Ontario. And we manufacture compost, soil blends, manufacture colored and natural mulches, rooftop medias, and other products, aggregates, sands, and decorative stone. And we kind of went with the approach of understanding our 3 main areas. One was our processing. The other was our leaf and yard waste drop-off. And then the third was our pickup, our retail and commercial pickup areas. So in terms of how the COVID-19 grew and expanded and changed day over day, we kind of looked at it and went with more of a drastic approach. And when I mean drastic approach, we limited our loader operators to 1 unit each. Before and after their shifts, they were to clean those units. So we have 6 loaders operating on site, and all 6 are utilized every day. We have 2 excavators as well as a watering truck, a turner, and we also have a screening plant. All those had designated staff, again, that would clean at the beginning and end of the shift. We did have to move into an afternoon shift, so we are running 18 hours a day. And they too were designated to 1 loader. We have 1 operator there, and we have 1 ground staff there in the afternoon. So that was the operational side of things, down back for processing. And that was really our mild risk location. Our secondary risk location was actually our curbside pickup that we processed. And what we did is we had signage implemented right away. And then what we did was we drafted letters to our customer base. We put all of our customers on a COD basis. And the reason for that was we didn't know how drastic COVID was going to be. We understood people were losing their jobs. We understood a lot of people were working from home and that financials were a big part to play. So we understand doing that, it upset a fair amount of our customer base, but at the same time, they were really understanding to know that if our customer wasn't being paid by the retail customer who was having the work done, then it would delay our payment. So we minimized that risk. In terms of curbside pickup, we put in 1 lane and we put in a tarping area. So tarping area where they would be able to have that social distancing aspect. They'd be able to unroll their tarp prior to loading and rolling their tarp up prior to leaving our yard. But we serviced 1 customer per time in 1 lane, and it minimized all touch points whatsoever. We closed our offices. Our loader operator would have the paperwork. It would be an on-call basis or email in by everyone visiting to pick up material, excuse me. And they'd be managed one vehicle at a time. In all those vehicles, honestly, we were seeing 1 person, 2 people the most. We weren't seeing 3, 4 people like we normally did. So it's really good to see that the marketplace out there is diligent and being aware of what's happening. The most area that we had to focus on was our leaf and yard waste drop-off area. Trucks come over our scales to drop off leaf and yard waste, and they would go to 1 central location. In the past, they'd unload their trucks and then they drive over the scale, pay and leave. So we did have to have double glass or plexiglass installed on our scales. And it was a touch only with credit or debit. There was no cash transactions over the scale. And we actually had our scale operators manage the flow of traffic to the leaf and yard waste drop-off areas. We also separated our commercial versus retail drop-off areas. So instead of having 1 central location, we now have 2. And again, our scale operators can manage the volume of traffic there, where there is signage explaining to be cognizant about social distancing when dropping off leaf and yard waste. In terms of our operation, communication through our staff as things were evolving was number 1. It was our largest key. And it was just being consistent, concise, and ensuring that everyone was on the same page, relaying that information to everyone who was visiting our site, whether to pick up or drop off material. In terms of our office staff, they all have their own workspaces. They're all diligent in cleaning. Even though there's no public in our offices, all of our desks now have plexiglass up. We've had to hire new staff and train them due to phone lines being lit up all day. The other thing we did with our curbside pickup is we minimized our hours. So instead of having it available from open to close, which was 7 to 6, we actually shrank our hours, and we only do curbside pickup from 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock. So it's given the staff room in the morning and at night to process all online orders and to get any paperwork out to the yard staff that's required. We also stopped all purchases on our Saturdays. Saturdays at our location, especially come May 2-4 weekend, this weekend, is more than a zoo. We knew that we could potentially see a drop in revenue, but at the same time, we were preparing ourselves to protect the staff and all public coming to the site. So there has been some changes in that regard. We really focused on just 5 S's as I kind of want to close this out, and it was sort, set order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And when I say sort, it's eliminate items from the workplace, keep it easy for the ladies, people working from home like myself. It was all eliminating most of our paperwork. It was eliminating, it's all down to email, faxing, and scanning now. Setting orders, we were arranging items so that they were easy to use. Shining, we were keeping all touch points clean, keeping all common areas clean. We had porta potties installed. Incoming material on like third-party trucking companies, raw material would come in. There'd be no paper transactions. It would all have to be emailed and scanned. So communicating that to them. Standardize, keeping a consistent approach to all tasks and procedures. And then last but not least was to sustain. And that was just to create habits within our culture to ensure that everyone was following the guidelines that was set out from management and understanding the processes. And at the same time, we had to correct as required going through the process. Through this whole thing, I'd have to say that that most people have been understanding through our drastic changes. And I was really on the fence about it. I thought it would be a lot worse, but the customers have really shown us that they have respected our steps in the marketplace, and we appreciate them for that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, John. It's wonderful how adaptable everybody is, you know, and how quickly we were able to adapt. So at this point, I'm looking at the chat line, and there's not that many questions. So if I'm talking to the audience here, if you want to ask questions, you'll have a few minutes. Is there any other comments that anybody wants to make as panelists? What are your most important challenges from a customer perspective? Maybe we'll start with a question like that. So I think Rob Allison wants to answer that.
well, I guess I just relay a conversation that I had with a few dealers in the last couple of days, and I think, as John alluded to, we're all learning new ways of doing things, but I think at the dealership level, a lot of our dealers are realizing that the way they have traditionally done business, and Jamie talked about this, we've been very much a handshake, pat on the back, touchy-feely kind of sales group. And as much as it irks me to say this, I think that's the way of the past. And so being able to be comfortable in having virtual conversations or doing transactions totally electronically is quite a major change in our industry at the retail level. But it is proving to be a lot more efficient, I think, than dealers wanted to realize, and also effective. You know, it's not as if people are reluctant to push the button on buy electronically nowadays. It seems as though that inherent reluctance to make a final commitment virtually is minimizing dramatically. So it's a new way of doing business for us, that's for sure.
Wonderful. Any other last comments, closing comments anyone else wants to make?
Yeah, we're seeing that too. Oh, sorry, Jamie, was that you?
You go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, I'll just reiterate exactly what you just said, and that our biggest challenge is keeping up with the changing consumer and that online business. Our online fulfillment business is up 10 times over last year, and trying to from a technology standpoint, from a packaging standpoint, from all of the just growing a business by 1,000% is just wasn't expected. So that's our it's great, but it's a massive challenge on top of trying to figure everything else out while you're at it. You got one section of your business just going through the roof, and it's brand new, and you're trying to figure out how to do it. So that's been a real fun exercise.
So your challenge was growing 1,000%.
Yeah,
good challenge.
Yeah, well, yeah, on a low base to begin with. Let's get real. It's not saving the world here, but it's a massive. Any business that grows by that. You see these tech startups and stuff like that. It's a scramble city. So anyway, it is a challenge.
Jamie, you
I just wanted to address Cheryl's question in the chat there. Will you change anything as everything is opening up? And to be honest, we've actually fallen quite comfortable into the groove of the way we're doing things right now. And, in looking after our team, our customers, and the general public, I think we are going to stick with the way we're doing things until everybody feels comfortable that we can go back to the traditional method of doing business. But for right now, the only thing that will change is everything that we learn, right? I mean, if there's any positive you can shine on the COVID-19 situation, pandemic, is we have all been forced to learn and adapt to a whole bunch of new things. And Tony asked what our biggest challenge was. I think our biggest challenge is to capture all the things we're learning and be able to articulate them when you're on a call like this, right? You're learning so much every day. That's something I need to adapt to, is to figure out how to capture all the learnings. So,
okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, if I could expand just a bit on what Jamie had mentioned in regards to going back to the way things were. Cheryl's question there is, we've all adapted in a positive manner. We have all adapted in our own ways, and I think we've all come to the conclusion that things will never be the same again. We understand that operating our business moving forward will forever be changed, whether it's social distancing on site, not accepting paperwork from incoming material. We've all got to look beyond the scope and figure out how we're going to adapt moving forward as businesses.
Okay. And Rob Vanderkruk.
So just two short comments, I guess. Number one, I guess the concern that we have here at our company is complacency. As time goes on, do people relax? And yet I don't believe that we should relax until there's an actual cure for COVID-19. So, it's going to be, I think as time goes on, perhaps maybe more difficult to maintain appropriate spacing, cleaning, etc. Is the first thing. And then I guess the second thing is, we're in an industry that still to a large degree requires a lot of interaction, and even the product line that we carry, and I'll speak for ourselves personally, the product line that we carry is a touchy, feely, smelly thing, and how do we function within an environment where we're trying to do as much as we can from a digital aspect. So just putting it out there.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. So it's about an hour, so I'm gonna cut this off. I just want to thank everyone for your ideas and your participation. I'll tell you, when I listen to this group and observe some of the members, I'm just very proud to be in the company of such wonderful people. Thank you to our wonderful and generous panelists. And while we have your attention, I want to let you know about an idea that Jamie Riddell had. The mission of Landscape Ontario is very simple. It's to advance the landscape profession. And our vision and our job is to grow a prosperous, professional, ethical, recognized, valued, and contribution-oriented profession. You as suppliers are part of that vision. You're also huge contributors. Jamie wants to put together a committee of suppliers that would develop a plan to accelerate the vision. It is a great idea. You have a great deal to offer. Suppliers and their customers are interdependent. We are each other's prosperity partners. If you have an interest in participating on the suppliers committee, please let us know either in the chat box or email me at tony@landscapeontario.com. Jamie, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just, we're sitting here today talking about our influence on our customers and safety protocols. As we went through and did our strategic plan for Landscape Ontario, one of the goals was to have 80% of green industry companies as members. And we all know as suppliers that we are the biggest conduit to non-members that's out there. We have non-members shopping with us every day. We have the ability to influence them to become members. We have the ability to inform them of what the great benefits of being a Landscape Ontario member are. We can come together on many different ideas, from education to membership drives. And I think we, as associate member suppliers, we offer a unique perspective on that. And I think, if we come together, we can help drive towards LO's goal of 80% membership of green industry companies.
Wonderful. Thank you. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you, audience, for participating, and we'll do this again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tony.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.